little research online. There wasn't much. They did have a league website, but it's all in another language. And so I'm like, well, okay. And you're looking at pictures and you're trying to, go off that and whatever. But I'm like, hey, this is my best opportunity to keep playing. And I for the first time, I get to leave, and experience another culture. And so, let's go. And when I got over there, the reception for, like just the fact that I was an American person, like people were just like, they were so hospitable and so gracious, and they wanted to help you. And funny story, it was so, like, I remember the first night I went out on the town with the guys, they took me out for the first night, because you get there and I'm like deer in the headlights. I'm looking around like, okay, they drive on the same side of the road as we do. Okay, that's cool. That works. And, you're looking around. Well, Helsinki, you're right below the Arctic Circle. And then in the summertime, the sun goes down at around midnight and comes up like at 2:00 in the morning, so you really don't see dark ever that much. You know what I mean? And, I get there and I remember they're like, okay, here's your place. They dropped me off at my place. We're going to come pick you up tomorrow. They took me grocery shopping first, and which was an experience. I'm asking for stuff I like, and they don't have any of that. They're looking at me like I got three heads, like pickles. Like I'm a big pickle guy. I love dill pickles. And I remember going, hey, can we get some pickles? And they're like looking at me like, what? Like, why would you want that? Well, their pickles are completely different, don't taste the same. Nobody really likes them. They're like, why on earth would you want those? But yeah, they stocked me up for the night, and then they were like, well, we're going to come pick you up right before we go to the first team meeting at this time tomorrow. Like, okay. So and then they told me the best way that you can get acclimated is to try to stay up as long as you can, because the sun doesn't go down at 9:00 like it does in the States. It's gonna be up. So you try to stay up as long as you can. And so I was fighting it, and I was like, okay, and, fell asleep. Well, I woke up and the sun was up, and I was like, okay, great. Well, nobody had told me the sun goes down and comes up, and they had given me a clock, but it was like nobody had set it, so it's just flashing, blinking at me, and the time's not accurate, so I don't know. So I'm staying up as late as I can, and then the sun starts to go down, so it's like, okay, now I'm going to go to sleep. Well, it's midnight. I didn't know this. So, my body's still on, American time, so I wake up at like 3 a.m. Well, the sun's up, so I'm like, oh, okay. I got a full night's rest. Everything's great. No idea. Couldn't tell what time it was. So, well, they were going to come pick me up at like 2:00 in the afternoon before the first team meeting. So I'm waiting around for 12 hours, and I'm like, are these guys, like, are they screwing with me? Like, what is going on? Like, should I walk outside? Should I look? I didn't have a phone yet, like nothing. And I was just terrified, and like right about then, all those like Hostel movies came out, they were all like super popular, you know what I mean? Where they, those horror movies, over in Europe and stuff. So, so that kind of stuff's going through my head, because I'm an idiot kid still, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I'm just terrified. Well, now my body is wanting to sleep, and I'm just like, my internal clock is just going crazy, and I'm trying to stay awake because I'm like, if I fall asleep, what's going to happen to me? Are they going to come looking for me? Is somebody else going to come, or am I going to, like, what's going to happen? And they finally came and picked me up, and boy, I lit into them. I was like, what the hell are you guys doing to me? Blah, 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 and just a disrespectful American, just giving it to them. And they're like, hey, it's 13:30 hours. Oh, sorry. Yeah, first impression. Great. Okay, thanks. So that was pretty funny. But the first time I went out with the guys too, they took me out, and man, like everybody was trying to buy me a drink. everybody. I had them lined up on the table because there was no way I was going to make it. They were going to have to drag me home. And their the alcohol content is stronger than ours over there. So, like, if you were to have an adult beverage, if you were to have one there, well, it's like two there. And then, two here is like four there. Do the math, You're not acclimated to that. So, that was another interesting time, that first night. But so many people were hospitable. So many people treated me nice. And yeah, it was a great experience for sure.
Josh, for their league, are they operating more or less exact same rule book, or do they have any particular standout differences in the way the game is played?
No, it's the same. They actually, the league I played in, they used college rules. So, and there's little differences, like in the NFL, if you're on offense, you make a catch, and you fall down out in the open field or whatever, you hit the ground, you make a diving catch, whatever, you can still get up and go. In college, you can't do that. So once you're down, you're down. And then in NFL, if you're catching a pass on the boundary in the sideline in the back of the end zone, you got to get 2 feet in order for it to count. In college, you just need 1 foot down. So, there's real minor differences, but for the most part, the game is pretty much the same. So they did NCAA Division I college rules over there. So the field was the same, regulation, size, everything. So yeah, it was the same. There was no differences there.
Word.
Yeah.
Man, that's good, Josh. So tell us now. Let's start to go into, you came back here and moving into now. Tell us what you coach now and kind of your I would say, I guess, your platform, for lack of a better term, but where your focus is with the jumps, even though you're still coaching these other sports.
Well, yeah, real quick, kind of a rundown of how I got started into coaching, I guess, is I played arena football after I came back to the States. Ended up getting into that. And I was back and forth to Europe too. I went and played in Germany for a year. I went back to Finland. I played a couple more seasons over there, and then I got into the indoor game. And I had signed a contract with a team out of Casper, Wyoming called the Wyoming Cavalry. And my younger brother that played college football, he played in the town I'm living in now at the university, Black Hills State University. It's a Division II university in the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference. And before I needed to be over to Casper, I kind of shacked up with him because I didn't really have a home base at the time. And so I just kind of hung out with him, got to know the coaching staff there, and they actually offered me a job, which, from what I understand, doesn't happen that often. And they were like, we've got a running back position open, assistant coach running backs. We're offering it to you, and you get a small stipend and whatnot. So I was like, oh, that's great. Well, the arena season, it runs opposite. It's in the summers, and college football, NFL college is in the fall. So, I'd do my coaching, and then I'd go over play arena, and then I'd come back and do coaching, and that worked out pretty well. And then when I got done playing, I was still coaching college, and that's when I decided, okay, this is an easy transition for me. This is what I know. This is what I want to do. And I seemed to connect well with the players. I had some good, I gained a lot of ground with the guys I had. I formed great relationships and good connections. And I was like, okay, this is probably my future. Well, a high school position opened up, and, I wasn't playing anymore. And, it just seemed like the better fit. I had some other jobs in town, but, my love, my passion had transferred into coaching. This is what I wanted to do. One thing I didn't mention is when I went over to play in Europe, I had actually left without finishing college. And, I mean, I hate to say this. I'm going to be honest, but I went to college to play football, not to go to school, if that makes sense. Like my focus was football.
Oh, yeah.
And
yep.
Yeah, do what you got to do to pass your classes, and it took me a while to even decided what I wanted to do for a major, and I never really actually committed. I was going down the road of exercise science and or outdoor recreation, and I was kind of moving in that direction, but I never officially confirmed a major. And so I still had school to take care of. So I was like, well, I'm going to take care of this school, and I'm going to jump back into school and finish. That way I can get my degree and I can kind of climb up the ladder for coaching. Well, at Black Hill State, it was, the climate was starting to change a little bit, and then I had known somebody down the road in the neighboring town of Belle-Fourche at the high school, and they had offered me a coaching position. And ironically, it paid more than my college coaching position, which, I tell people that now, and they're like, really? Really? And I'm like, yes, really. It's like, you guys don't understand, like, coaching in college, especially small level, you don't make that much money. For the time that you put into it, that ratio is not in your favor. And anyway, this was a better move. It took opened up my weekends a little bit. The commitment wasn't as great. Plus, I had just met what is now my wife, but I was engaged at the time. And, we were going to get married, start a family. This was the better move. So I went to Belle-Fourche High School, which is just north of the town I live in now, about 10, 11 miles. So, they've got me coaching football over here. And then they kind of threw in some other sports, if you want to say, as incentives also, just to make it better for me. They asked me to help with wrestling. I did. And then they wanted me to help with track too. That's something I inquired immediately about. It's like, hey, I'm in for track. I don't care if you have a position for me or if I got to volunteer. I'm helping with track, because now I get to go do something that I'd thought, that I'd kind of lost out on. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, yeah. And, so they were like, okay, well, what have you done? And I was like, well, I was a sprinter and I was a jumper, and I did pretty decent in both. This is what I'd like to do. Okay, it's yours, have at it. So that's kind of how I ended up where I'm at now. So.
Very, very cool, man. Adam, you got anything else on that before we get into the kind of the nuts and bolts of what he's going to talk about?
Well, I'm really excited to hear this, because I don't have any sport-specific experience at all training some of the events that Josh really excels at. So for me, I'm taking notes too on this.
Cool. So Josh, you can decide what you want to talk about first. Maybe you want to talk about, where you were, what state the program was in before you specifically started training jumps. And then I want you to hit on the kind of culture that's morphed from that, with the success you guys have had. So why don't you do that first? Why don't you talk about where the program was at as far as the jumps specifically, and what you brought to the table, and the success you had with that one gal that made it to state, and kind of the ripple effect of that. Go that route and just kind of give these guys the lay of the land there.
Sure.